you know him as a composer of shows, theme songs like Rockford Files, Hill Street Blues, L.A. Law, Law and Order, Greatest American Hero, The A-Team, Baba Black Sheep,
I know.
Kathy Blossom, Doogie Howser, Quantum Leap, Hardcastle McCormick. We're like, what do we bring him on with? We need something exciting. So we're going to do that. Ladies and gentlemen, we are very excited to welcome Mr. Mike Post to our show this morning. Mike, good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning. Nice to meet you, Preston.
And wonderful to have you on our show. And I'm sorry if I butchered some of your most cherished melodies with I'm not a singer, so I did what I could.
You know what? As long as you enjoyed them, I don't care how well you sing.
I've got to say it's an honor, Mike, to talk to you because I kid you not, and I've told the story many times on air. I had a Dodge Dart. I got my first cassette player, and immediately I got the Mike Post TV theme songs, and I drove around cranking that thing. And I remember there used to be sort of a backlash before people understood. You don't understand. These are brilliant compositions, and you were obviously had been enjoying a successful career at the time, but I think over time people have begun to appreciate people who do the soundtracks for TV and movies. Hans Zimmer and Jerry Goldsmith and John Williams and people such as yourself as composers, as holding up that end of the musical experience for so many people. And that's what makes your new project, this album, Messages from the Mountain and Echoes of the Delta, it seems like it's something you've been working towards all your career. Would it be safe to say that?
Yeah, I've never thought of it that way, honestly. With this, making music for television is kind of the same as making music for film. So we're all in sort of one community. Basically, we look at pictures without music and somehow a jukebox starts playing in our head. This particular project, what happened here, it was probably percolating and brewing my whole life because I started out as a folkie. And so I'm fairly authentic as a bluegrass guy, and then I played a lot of blues in my life, and so I think of myself as authentic as a blues appreciator for sure. And now, delving into the idea of melding both blues and bluegrass with orchestral music was what this really is. And the reason it happened was COVID put my shows on ice for 6 months, and I had nothing to do. So
I was born of that. It's funny. Yeah. A friend of the show, Michael Giacchino, he did something similar. He released Travelogue Volume 1, which was sort of an expression for him. It seems like almost the exact same scenario gave birth to that. So with your life and as prolific as you've been, it had to be just frustrating to have everything stalled, and this is your outlet.
Well, honestly, when it first struck, I went, oh, man, I'm going to get a vacation that isn't, from May to September, which is usually when I'm back in Philly with my wife's family. And, this was like, okay, a vacation when I'm not supposed to have a vacation. But then after about a week, I got restless and went, well, what are you going to do? You got to do something. You can't. And Giacchino, good friend of mine too. All of us, we're sort of stuck in our lane of like, okay, it's time to go to work. They got a film or a TV show for us to do. But the truth is, music's music, and we're all in the band, so we're gonna play.
Well, I listened to a lot of it last night, and I love the sound, and I love soundtracks. I love music of this nature, and not that it's a soundtrack. I guess you could say it for people who, and I don't even know what that classification means. It's just it seems story told through music, and the melding of the styles, and it has a uniquely American, if I'm saying that right, sound to it. And it also, to me, it put me in mind of kind of an Aaron Copland kind of thing, that the hope of this country. It is a story of immigrants, correct?
Yeah, it is exactly that. it didn't start out that way, but I'm for sure, a product of this country and a product of what I've heard. And it, the more that it sort of grew and blossomed, and the more it did that, the more it became in the line. Listen, I grew up on Rodeo and in Copeland and Dvorak and the New World Symphony, and how to me that was sort of the discovery of rock and roll, to me, and jazz and bluegrass and all the rest. It's informed me musically my whole life. That kind of music,
Mike, how often does it happen that you have an intention with a direction on a piece of music and it ends up being something completely different by the time you're done with it?
Daily.
Yeah, daily.
Be a minute. Michael McDonald was right, minute by minute. It's like, it's like, oh yeah, I know exactly what I'm doing. I've been doing this my entire, 79 years I've been on this earth. I've been playing music for 75 of it or 74 of it. Yeah. And, and I'm technically pretty strong. Oh, I know everything about it. I don't know a thing. Honest to God, it's magic. Anybody that tells you that, oh, it's so intentional and it's so this, yeah, it starts out that way, but then it just goes crazy, especially the more players you add, the more ideas come out, the more it takes on a life of its own. It's a weird way to make a living because, you're supposed to know everything about it, and none of us know nothing. It's just magic.
Where did you think you were going to go with music when you began, as opposed to where you ended up? Did you think you were going to be a folk star, a performer, and then it led you down a different path?
Yeah, honest to God, I sort of, looking back on it, if you will, I was in the hallway of the music rehearsal building at any college or university or community college. You walk down the hallway and there's all these little doors and there's these rooms where guys are, people are practicing, right? Mm-hmm. And to me, my goal was always the same. I just wanted to make an honorable living, like the way I was raised. Your word's everything. Be an upright, kind of straight arrow guy, and make a living doing music. What did that mean? Well, if you're working in a club, that's good. If you're part of the studio scene, the way I was here in LA, young, oh my God, that's fantastic. If you get a shot at playing stadium rock, okay, So if it's down to repairing instruments or teaching or whatever, I get to do music and I get to make a decent living at it. Home run.
Well, you are a heavy hitter in every sense of the word. I'm a massive fan. Preston and I are huge fans of this documentary, The Wrecking Crew, about this incredible collection of musicians. You were part of this crew. You're very self-effacing, and you say you were lower rung on that group. But you had, I think your idol is Tommy Tedesco, correct? Who?
Yeah, one of them.
Yeah.
Tommy helped me a lot. He big brothered me, but so did Glenn Campbell, and so did a lot of guys. And yeah, just to be mentioned in that group of gunfighters, because that's really what we are. We walked into studios every day, sometimes 3 and 4 times a day, sat down, and they dropped music in front of us that we'd never heard. Rehearse? Are you kidding me? Let's go. You look at it, you listen to it once, and we come up with a hit lick, and next session 3 hours later. So.
It's something that I keep trying to spread the message to people, and Preston and I are get the word out about this. You need to understand just what an accomplished, insanely talented group of people.
Oh man,
that you guys were, and lady, who were all part of this, and yet I was reading an interview with you where you said you decided early that was kind of more where you like to be behind the scenes a bit more. And then Dolly Parton once said something about your career. What did she say to you?
Oh, she said, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. She goes, I was out to dinner with her and a guy that I went to grammar school, junior high, and high school with, named Tom Selleck, right? And they were, our dinner was getting interrupted, every 12 seconds with somebody that wanted a picture, an autograph or something, that's the route that goes with the territory of their territory. And after a while, they just started laughing. And they just looked at me, and both of them are kind of smirking and, just being wise asses. And so Dolly says, you're the luckiest guy on the face of the earth. You got all the good parts and none of the bad parts. And it's true. It's really true. I haven't, when Dolly walks out on stage and the light hits her, the most magical stuff happens. These people are different than I am. They just shine when they're being watched by an audience. They blow up. I blow up in the studio. I blow up when I'm sitting alone at night, in front of my piano or playing guitar by myself. And I'm made for the job I'm at, which is, it's not that I hate performing. I don't. It's just that I love being in the studio and making music.
There's a blessing to knowing what you enjoy and really assessing what you are, what you're dialed in for. And then if you can find that out early, then that can be everything to you, because your missteps are less because you're guided by that.
Well, Dolly wasn't wrong. I'm so fortunate. I grew up in LA, so I didn't have to come from West Philly. I didn't have to, I didn't have to come from Des Moines. I was already here. I played on my first hit record when I was 19, and I produced my first hit when I was 21, and won my first Grammy when I was 24, and became music director of the Andy Williams Show that year as well. And so it was like I sort of hit the ground running, and doors just opened up in that hallway that I never could have predicted. I never could have dreamed this. I never did dream this. it just happened. And I was, I'm proud of some of the stuff that I've accomplished. I'm proud of the fact that I've never whiffed. Every 7,200 hours of television, and I've never missed a day of work. I never let a producer down. The guys that I worked for all were my dear friends, and they seem to be happy with me.
Mike, when I was a kid, Greatest American Hero was sort of one of my favorite early TV shows. I was 6 or 7 when it came out, and I loved the theme song, which you composed. And then when I was a teenager, or maybe in college, it showed up again in my life on George Costanza's Answering Machine. And I'm curious as to whether or not you made any money off of the Seinfeld airing of the Greatest American Hero theme.
Let me think about that. Hell yes. They better pay me. I mean, come on.
You were telling a story about I guess it was Stephen Jay Canal, who is a genius and a producer of so many shows, of Rockford Files, for example, and he did something kind of wild, which I thought was cool. He kind of came to you and this is true, Mike. You're very humble, but so. A lot of the heat on those shows, and the people may not remember this, your theme songs became hits, were being played on the air in rotation.
Yep.
And so Canal came to you and said, you're a substantial part of this show. What he made you an offer that was unheard of at the time. Could you illuminate us on that?
Yeah, he, at the time, and if he were alive today, he'd still be my best friend. So, we're hanging together, do a lot of stuff together, businesses outside of music and TV together. So one day the phone rings, and he had just gone out on his own. He was originally signed to Universal, and then he went out on his own and created this company that he became the deficit financer, and so blah, blah, blah. So the phone rings, Canal on the phone. Okay. Hey, what's going on? What are you doing? I'm working. What do you need? He goes, I just looked at the budgets, and this is completely wrong. Completely wrong. I said, okay. I'm thinking, what, am I overcharging or something? and he I'm getting wealthy and you're underpaid. I went, oh, get off the phone. I got to go to work. Don't bug me with this baloney. He goes, no, I'm serious. You're my best friend and you are way underpaid. I said, nobody died and left you the keys to the kingdom. You don't get to say all this. I'm making good money. He said, just come up with another figure and another way to do this because you're not getting paid enough. And I went, you're an idiot. And I called him the next day and I said, okay, here's what to do. Just give me the whole budget for the music and I'll be I'll do what you're doing in the film side, being a deficit financer. I'll manage the music budget. And he goes, well, wait a second. I don't want you to take those kind of risks. What if I don't like what you did? I said, when's the last time that happened? And he said, yeah, maybe you're right. And honestly, the idea of packaging the music had not been done in television. And so honestly, that's how I got financially stable, shall we say.
I mean, it had not happened before. And you were again, and we're talking about Message from the Mountains and Echoes of the Delta, which is this project, which is phenomenal. You introduced electric guitars. I think it was Canal. I was reading. Always said you always wanted to infuse rock and roll into that. And that not had been the norm on TV themes before that. How hard did you have to fight to infuse new sort of sounds, more rock elements into your compositions?
There was no fight at all. Honest to God, what I did was so simple, Steve. There was Mancini. Mancini was the guy that came in saying, I'm going to do music that they're going to walk out humming. So, obviously Peter Gunn, Mr. Lucky, Tiffany's, the guy was just tuneful, right? And he took those little tunes and then the entire score reflected those tunes. So I myself and my late partner, Pete Carpenter, I said, let's just do what Mancini did. Let's make little 1-minute hit records, and then let's reflect those melodies in the score. Because, indeed, yeah, I've done well with theme songs, but I've done the score for every one of those 7,200 hours of episodes. So that's my real job, and let's just reflect the theme and all the underscores. So, well, that's what we did, but. Look at my background. My background is a rock and roll, piano and guitar player. So what's my sensibilities as opposed to jazz and big band stuff that Mancini came out of? So I just carried on a matrix that he had established, and I did it coming from where I came from. Chuck Berry, Bo Diddley, Jerry Lee, Johnny Cash.
Yeah.
All bluegrass and blues, and that's reflected in this project that you plugged so nicely this morning. Thank you for
I do want to tell you that the theme song for The Greatest American Hero was the sole reason why I quit football back in, I think it was 1981. And my older brother played football, and I had to play with him. And I'm playing with all these kids that are 3 years older than me, and I got hit so hard that I went flying like 5-10 yards. And the big thing about Greatest American Hero is that he didn't know how to land.
That's right.
So every time I came to football practice after that, they all sang that theme song to me as I was coming onto the field, and I couldn't take it anymore. So I quit football.
Casey,
yeah,
you don't know this, but you're talking to a little high school linebacker as well.
Yeah,
okay? And I kept showing up on the gig on Friday nights, taped up or splinted up or something. I'm 5'8" and 170 pounds, and finally, I'm trying to play piano with a splint on my finger and my wrist wrapped up. And the leader says to me, he says, are you any good at football? I said, well, I lettered in the 10th grade. That's pretty good. He goes, yeah, but are you any good at it? And I said, well, I don't know. Not really. And he goes, well, you're really a good piano player. You're really good in this rock and roll band, but you keep coming, stitched up or taped up or something. I think it's music, not football. Well, here you are on the radio, man.
Yeah.
Sage advice, yeah.
And I want to ask, because that theme song had lyrics to it, Blossom had lyrics to it. Some of your other theme songs don't have lyrics to it, but in your mind, do they like Hill Street Blues? Does that have any lyrics in your mind?
So Bochco calls me up, maybe in the first season at Hill Street, and the record wasn't out yet as a hit, but the show was well received, and so was the music. And Bochco goes, "Hey, I came up with a lyric for Hill Street Blues." I said, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, Hill Street Jews, Hill Street Jews. Everybody's got them Hill Street Jews." Of course, Bochco and I are Jewish. Oh, thank you very much, and I hung up.
That's great. Your songs are like, and Casey's right, but they're characters in the show. I mean, in these shows, they're iconic, and so. I was listening to like Bochco and all the producers that you've worked with talking about how they just give you a nugget, and I thought the Preston is a percussionist. When Bochco came to you with NYPD Blue, which is one of my favorite themes. Everything you do has something that is. There are multiple things that work, and I think of it. It sets the tone so well. Explain how you came up with that theme, because you said that stuff is accidental, but you also recount stories where something just clicked and you got it immediately. So how did you arrive at that percussive sound for NYPD Blue?
Well, first of all, thanks for the compliment, because, that's what I'm shooting for. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to come up with these 1-minute little hit records that define the show. Okay. It's like, I want those guys that I work for to walk out going, if I could write music, that's exactly what I would have done. So on this, we'd hit a big home run with Hill Street Blues, a big home run with Doogie and with L.A. Law. So they send me the script for NY, and God, I just love the script. I'm so excited. I just can't wait to go to work. So Bochco and the director, Greg Hobbit, they want to have lunch with me. Okay, great. So we go meet at a restaurant. And they don't say anything. And I'm just, we're talking about who's having a whitefish and who's having, a steak sandwich. I'm going, are they going to say anything? So finally I go, guys, we're here about the music. We got to get going. What are you thinking? And Bochco says, well, I've been thinking about drums. I went, what? He goes, yeah. Has there ever been a theme that was just drums? I said, no, there's the start to Hawaii 5-0, I said, but there's there's never been a theme with just drums. That's crazy. He goes, well, that's all I was thinking about. And I went, what? He said, yeah, that's all I got to say. How's your food? I go, my food's fine. Now, so I turned to Hoblet, and I go, okay, what do you have to say? Now, these are the two biggest guys in television at the time. They are phenomenally successful and well thought of and very well hardwired with Emmys, right? And so Hobbit says, well, I've been thinking about subways. I went, holy moly, these guys have lost it. What do you mean subways? Well, if you think of it, if you think about New York, the sort of the system, the circulation system, the veins, the arteries, are really the subways. I said, okay, you two geniuses, drums and subway. That's what I'm going to walk away with? I went, yeah. And I, honest to God, like a bolt of lightning, I went, I know exactly what to do. I said, you know what, you guys are breaking my balls here. Guess what? I know what to do. And I went, well, we thought you would. And so I went back to my studio and in Burbank, and I started out with a guy that was working with me at the time, who's gone on to become a great composer, named Danny Lux. And we came up with that. I took the sound of the drum fill in the air tonight on the Phil Collins record. I went, we got to beat that tom tom sound, because that was one of my favorite licks ever.
Yeah.
But boom, that lick. So I I said, let's beat that. And I'm going to make a groove out of the sound of a train on a track. So subway and drums.
You did.
Yeah, I did. And I must say, the middle section would not have been the middle section without my wife, because my wife is from West Philly. Her last name is McGettigan. She comes from a big Irish family that's near and dear to my heart. And that's why I got up at 5 a.m. to talk to you, because I love the town that you guys work in. Honestly, it's fantastic. Have this big family back there, and I had always been into Irish music anyway, and I thought, well, what do all these police guys in New York City have in common historically? And the fact is that when the NYPD first started in the late 1800s, they were all Irish. So I thought, I'm going to do a middle section with some heart in it, and it's going to be Irish, So there it is,
Well, all of it in your stuff always has that, like, for example, and we have to talk about, your Dick Wolf Association and, all of the Law and Order stuff. That middle section, the clarinet, all that stuff. I don't know. It's almost like dialogue that you're writing, or a story that's being told, and I can sit there. So many shows these days just have a theme song or a little bump or something quickly, and there's nothing that sets the tone the way a really good theme song does. Now, Preston was pointing out, like on some of the serial, the streaming shows, you'll get a bit more of a theme, but. Let's talk about L.A. Law, because, I mean, of all of this vast body of celebrated work that you've done, is it possible that'll be the most? Is that dun going to be on your tombstone?
Hey, before we say that, is it possible for me to get up early every day and be on your show every day? Right? You guys make me feel great. I mean, honest to God, and
well, it's from the heart, and we really are huge fans.
Well, thank you very much. Next time Patty and I are in Philly, I'm going to come by and hang with you.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Dick Wolf, he's hysterical. I met him on the 7th and 8th year of Hill Street. He was a writer, and I just liked him, and I thought he was super talented, and we became friendly. And so the deal on Law and Order is crazy. He calls me up and says, "Hey, can I tell you a story?" I said, "Sure." He said, "Well, let's meet for a drink." So we sit down. I said, "What's up? What are you thinking about?" And he said, the hour cop and law and medical dramas, they're not syndicating worth a damn. They're just not doing well. It's all Cosby and Full House and blah, blah, blah. And I said, "Yeah, I know." And he said, "So the first half hour, I'm going to do the crime and the cops and the perpetrator. And the second half hour, I'm going to do the prosecution and the defense and the judge and the trial." I go, I'm not tracking. What are you talking about? So I'm going to shoot it as an hour, but I'm going to syndicate it in half hours. And I went, "Man, never been done. That's so smart. God almighty." He said, "Yeah, I'm going to do it all in New York City." I said, "What are you going to call this thing?" He said, "Law and Order." I went, "Man, that's a great idea. I'm in." He goes, No, I don't know what my budget is. I don't know what it can pay you. And you're the number one guy out there right now. And it would really help me if you're involved, but I can't ask you to do it because I don't know. I said, "Shut up. I'm in. Let me in, please. Do me a favor." He said, "Okay, great." I said, "All right, so what's the music like?" He said, "Well, let me send you a script." Sends me a script. I read it. I love it. I go, "Okay, what's the music about? Give me some marching orders." He goes, "Well, I'm doing it all in New York. It's like, steam coming out of manhole covers, some slick streets, nighttime, a little rainy, blah, blah, blah. But it's also the majesty of the law." And I went, "Oh, okay." He said, "More than anything, write some music that defines New York City." I said, I hate to break the news to you, but there was this guy named George Gershwin. He did that. Yep. He already did that. Okay, so Rhapsody in Blue, I'm not going to be able to run and gun with him. He's better than me. Okay, so I can't really do that. He goes, "Well, that's what I need." I go, "Okay, you want me to do New York City?" Great. So I come up with this little Buddha, and I start messing around with this new guitar I had. I'm snapping the strings, back, back, back. And I kind of like the A section. I thought, well, but he wants me to find New York City, wants me to step up with George Gershwin. Oh, well, I got to use a clarinet. I mean, at least I'll do that, So that's how the middle section comes in, and so I put the whole thing together. And he comes over and he listens to it. He goes, "Man, that's it. That's it. Don't change a note." And I went, "Okay, perfect."
Wow.
That's
We're
amazing.
just tuning in. Mike Post is joining us. Nick, you had a question?
Yeah, well, first of all, Mike, I wanted to...
Wait.
Go ahead.
Nick, I have to tell you guys, it was never syndicated in half hours. That's
That's what shocked me. I never heard of it.
Yeah.
It was always been a 1 hour. It's always been that.
It was still a change, though. I mean, nobody had really done that before in that format, and it obviously was revolutionary and successful for 3 decades at this point.
Completely the most successful franchise in the history of TV.
I mean, who doesn't know that dun dun?
Yeah.
The scene change sound.
Yep.
Yeah, it's iconic.
Mike, I wanted to first of all thank Mary Kay McGettigan, your niece, because she used to work here at the radio station, and she was the bridge to get you on the show. So shout out to Mary Kay and all of the McGettigans here in Philadelphia. I think there's 4,000 of them. But I wanted to ask you, there's a lot of great iconic themes that you've come up with, and some of them have been married to fantastic television shows like Hill Street Blues, and for me, Doogie Howser was great. What is your favorite theme that ended up on a TV show that maybe kind of flew under the radar or wasn't received as well as some of the others?
I probably the answer is Bay City Blues, another Bochco show.
Yeah.
That and I'm not plugging, but it was completely Americana because it was a short-lived show with Dennis Franz and Sharon Stone, her first TV thing, and it was really good. It was really well done about minor league baseball, and so it was a very Americana theme, and for some reason, the show didn't catch on, the network didn't hang with it long enough, or
I dug that show. Yeah, I used to enjoy that show a lot. And
me too.
Yeah,
me too. I love doing that show, but you know what? Listen, what makes it and doesn't make it. It's doing my thing is almost as hard as doing radio. You guys, it's like the book comes out and you go, our ratings are up. Well, we didn't do anything different. Our ratings are down. We didn't do anything different.
Yeah. Don't we know it? Yeah.
I know you know it, but believe me, it's all of us on the creative side. What do you do for a living? Well, I walk on this wire way up high, and there's all these razor blades down below if I slip and fall. It's like if they don't like the stuff, it hurts. That's art. If you do art for a living, you're emotionally it's a risky business for sure. So I have nothing to do with whether these shows make it or not. So Dolly was right. I am the luckiest guy in the world. I've Canal and Bochco and Dick Wolf, those guys don't suck. Those guys are really good at their jobs, and if they think I'm good at my job and I'm happy as I could be, that's, I'm blessed.
Mike, I want to ask a specific question about, matching a theme to a show because, you mentioned Law and Order and getting the feel of New York City. And you take a song like Magnum PI. It's very action oriented. It fits with the imagery. Blossom is playful and fun. But you take Hill Street Blues. You take a show that's a hard hitting drama about crime on the street of New York City and all the things that come with it. Yet it is a very pleasant sounding. Very enjoyable melody that goes with this. It's almost counter to the TV show itself. Yeah. How does that work? How did you, it's such a great iconic theme song, but yet it does match the show, even though the show is harder hitting than that.
Well, honest to God, Preston, it is magic. Yeah. Okay, it's these little tiny decisions that you don't think are going to be important. And looking back, you go, the show stays on 9 years and everybody goes, yeah, I couldn't imagine that opening being any different. And it was a simple little thing. I saw the pilot without any main title in it. And I was blown away. 1981, and that thing was so different than anything that had ever been on TV. Mm-hmm. It was just jaw-dropping. It was so impactful and so funny, for minutes, and then bang, so real and crazy and terrifying, or exhilarating. And it was just up and down so violently, and then so sweetly and kindly and so crazy. Belker the Biter. Come on.
Yes, yeah.
Who comes up with stuff like that? At any rate, so we go up to Bochco's office, and I'm going, anybody got any ideas of what the music is? And I don't know. And I said, well, what am I looking at on the screen during the main title sequence? And Hoblet, great director, says, well, I'm thinking the door goes up on a garage, and a prowl car comes out and cruises through South Bronx, burned out Detroit. It's any town in the Midwest, East Coast, and it cruises through rainy, crappy weather, and it's just depressing. I went, okay. And Bochco, Bochco goes, what does that sound like? I said, well, maybe Stevie Wonder, Clavinet, Summer in the City. I don't know. I don't know what that's. And Bochco says, well, what else could you do? That's all he said. What else could you do? And I don't know. I just said, well, you could go against the picture. You could do something poignant. You could do something that kind of makes you nod your head and go, man, in this episode, people died, babies were born, there's hope, and there's depression. And he goes, yeah, do that. And I went, I was living at the time, 3 minutes away from the studio we were at in Studio City. And I walked in, and I was immediately in E flat, and I went, God, that's pretty good. So I'm honest. And so it took about 30 minutes, and I called Bochco up. I said, you better come over here. He goes, no, I don't want something out of a trunk that you did, some other. No, I don't have a trunk. I don't do that. I don't recycle anything. I just did it. So he walks in, him and Hoblet, and I go, clank, 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 clank. He goes, do that again. He goes, yeah, that's my show.
Wow.
We're done.
It's amazing. It's friggin' amazing. Mike.
Wow.
So from that, so from you as the creator to me, when I hear that, it's funny to hear you say that, because I always kind of assign an emotion to the music. It's a natural inclination. And I would hear the Hill Street Blues theme, and it always, because I have brothers in law enforcement, and I would always hear in my mind, well, here it is. This is it. This is what we got. As you said, babies are born, people are shot. This is it. We got to go do this job, and there's going to be some good, there's going to be some wins and some losses, and that's it. And that's what captures that. It captures that so beautifully.
Yeah, thank you. One of the most just sweetest, kindest, fan letter I ever got that made me feel great was of a widow of a cop that got killed in the line of duty. And she wrote me this letter, and she goes, I bought your record, the record length version of Hill Street Blues. And she said, it got me through the last year. I'm about a year out from my husband getting killed. Wow. And she goes, I just listened to it and cried and listened to it and cried. And it really got me through it. I went, man, it's hard to relate to that, but it just, if you write something that somebody feels that way about, I don't need anything more than that. That's pretty good.
Wow. Yeah, I'd say so. I'd say so.
Well, listen, Mike, we do have to wrap, and I think we've only scratched the surface. So clearly you have to come by and visit us when you come to Philadelphia next time. We want to remind people that his new album is called Message from the Mountains and Echoes of the Delta. It's a bluegrass meets blues with some orchestral tendrils within there.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's available pretty much wherever you get your music. You can also go to mike-post.com for more information. But man, it's been so nice. We're huge fans, and we just have tremendous respect for you. And we'd love to have you by here sometime if you get a moment when you're in Philly.
Absolutely, 100% for sure. I will come by and see you guys. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for everything. We appreciate it. Mike Post. Wow.
I mean, friggin' Mike Post. You know, again, you don't even know stuff that you listen to that's his.
I know.